So welcome everyone tonight, Perth Green Drinks. Just if you put your phones on to silent, and if you do need to go to the loo, because we will be in here for about an hour, right? If you need to go, it's just out the door you came in and around the corner. Do you know Perth Green Drinks is not associated with the Greens Party? We're be friends with them, but we're not. We're actually part of an international network of green drinks all around the world. So when you go traveling, you can go to other green drinks. Flavia's been to San Francisco. It was awesome. Flavia is the person who organizes Green Drinks. She pretty much does all the work. Without her, these nights would not happen. So let's thank Flavia for all her thirsty work as well, especially for our speakers. So I would like to acknowledge Little Creatures for doing their part in providing us with beer and cider. And we always want to thank Central Institute of Technology as well, because this is their building, and they also provide us with all our snacks and non-alcoholic beverages. We actually have I think we have a special guest here tonight from Central. Is Jamie here? Okay. Sorry, I lied. Jamie does not appear to be here. We'll just skip over that. Embarrassing. So, I want to tell you just briefly, if you've not been to one of our nights or if you forget, just what to expect. We have 3 amazing speakers tonight, and each of them will talk to you for about 10 minutes. And then at the end, we're going to have a bit of a panel with Q&A, so you can ask them your burning questions. And because they have a lot to share, and we're cautious of time, we're going to give them a little warning bell at 8 minutes. So if you hear that, no, it's not the aliens. It's just a reminder to our speakers that they have a bit of time left. One thing that's been coming up a lot in our conversations, particularly with the panels after the events, is this whole idea of how do we get people to change their behaviors. And we kind of acknowledge that it would be maybe perhaps not the right way to go to just wait for governments to change their policies and their laws. So we want to talk about how we can get people to change the way we live, the way we travel, our homes, and even businesses and government, how we can get change to happen at that level. So that's what tonight was inspired by. It's a big challenge, but I reckon our 3 speakers tonight are up for the job. We've got Jane Genovese here. She's currently working on a PhD on changing values and behaviors, helping people lead happy and sustainable lives. Because nobody likes it, right? David Bayer, he works with transformative change in business environments, helping to provide sustainability and livability assessments of properties. And Jane Bryant is involved in designing a strategic community plan for the city of Canning. First, we're going to hear from Jane. So Jane has a background in psychology and education, and as I said, she's currently working on a PhD about changing values and behaviors for sustainability. And she's doing that with Murdoch University. She's interested in helping people explore ways of leading happy and sustainable lives. So please join me in welcoming Jane.
Have you ever come across this sort of thing before? 10 easy ways to save the earth. Raise your hand if you've come across something like this before. I used to love this sort of stuff. I'd look at the list of top 10 tips, I'd follow them religiously. I'd be recycling, changing light bulbs, and by the end, I'd be feeling like an eco-warrior. But when I fully confronted the scale of the environmental problems we face, I realised that changing light bulbs wasn't going to cut it. We need to rethink our whole way of living. So 2 years ago, I asked myself the question, how do we get people to live simpler, less consumption-based lifestyles? In other words, how do we reduce people's ecological footprint? And it turns out there's no simple 10 steps to take. Humans are complex and we're not as rational as we may think. So tonight I'm going to focus on 3 ways you can change your behaviour through disrupting habits, looking at social norms and values. So, has anyone here ever tried to change someone else's behaviour before? Be honest with yourselves. Maybe you felt someone needed to lose some weight. So what you did is you gave them a book or a brochure, some kind of information. And look, maybe the person changed, but chances are they probably didn't. You see, there's this assumption if you give people the right information, this will lead to attitude change and subsequently behaviour change. And yet it's true, to some extent, if you're ignorant, you're not going to take any action. But let me ask you this. Do you know someone who's quite concerned about the state of the environment, but they still drive a big car and they fly frequently? So information on its own actually does little to change human behaviour. And humans don't always act in line with their values, attitudes and beliefs. Why is this? Well, one major reason is mindless habits. Think of when you go shopping for your groceries. You probably always buy the same type of bread, cheese, toothpaste. Habits help you to navigate through the hundreds of consumer choices you're presented with. They make our lives easier. And we can learn a lot about habits and how they work by looking at popcorn. Raise your hand if you usually eat popcorn when you go to the movies. So there was this one experiment where researchers got a group of participants to rate movie trailers before watching a movie. One group of participants were given a box of fresh popcorn, the other group were given a box of stale 7-day-old popcorn. But they didn't know it was stale. Now, what they found is that the participants who only occasionally ate popcorn at the cinemas, they didn't like the stale popcorn as much as the fresh stuff, and they didn't eat so much. But the habitual popcorn eaters, they ate just as much stale popcorn as the fresh stuff. So even though the popcorn tasted disgusting, they ate it because they were in the habit of doing this. What was also interesting about this study is when the researchers changed the context and they showed participants music videos in a meeting room, the habitual popcorn eaters ate significantly less stale popcorn than the fresh stuff. So habits are basically automatic behaviours that are triggered by particular environmental cues in stable contexts. They develop because they're repeated, and they're usually repeated because there's some kind of short-term reward associated with them. Think of unsustainable behaviours, such as driving a car, eating fast food. These are often habits. But the thing about habits is they can cause you to develop this tunnel-like vision. You can overlook new information on how to do things better. So who here has a habit, a bad habit that you'd like to break once and for all? Anyone? Okay. So here's what you do. You start to notice what triggers that habit and then develop your self-control to resist the urge to engage in the behaviour or replace that behaviour with an alternative behaviour. Let me give you an example of this from my own life. Last year, my husband and I developed this really bad habit of eating out all the time. What would happen is we'd come home from work and we'd have a conversation that went along the lines of this. I'm hungry, what are we having for dinner? I don't know, I'm tired. I don't feel like cooking, let's eat out. Oh, we probably shouldn't, but okay. So we'd go out and we'd usually have something really high in fat, high in salt, which was instantly gratifying, and we'd do this night after night. It dawned on me that this wasn't healthy, this wasn't good for us, so I decided next time I hear my husband say, what's for dinner, I was going to go grab a simple recipe I had on standby and say, look, we're cooking this, it only takes 10 minutes. Now that worked about 90% of the time. An even better way to break a bad habit is to change your environment and remove the cues that trigger the behaviour. One of the reasons we were eating out all the time is we lived 100 metres away from a cafe strip. We were surrounded by temptation. Once we moved house to an area where there were no cafes, let me tell you, we broke that habit once and for all. It was healthy home-cooked meals on most nights. Now, if you're serious about living more sustainably, it means you have to go against the social norm. You need to take a stand against consumer culture. To live in opposition to these dominant values, though, can be really tiring. For instance, some of you may currently be taking part in Plastic-Free July. Is anyone here taking part? Great, so many of you, that's fantastic. And if you're taking part in it, you'll know that trying to source all your food without plastic packaging, having to say no straw please, no plastic bag, and explain to the butcher why you want to use your own Pyrex container can be exhausting at times. Mindless consumption, on the other hand, where you don't consider the impact that your behaviour has on the environment, other species, that's easy. Thanks to advertising, many of us have confused the good life with the goods life. The advertiser Frederick Breedbigger once said this: "I'm an ad man. Making you drool is my mission. In my line of work, no one wants your happiness, because happy people don't consume." We are sold the message that a happy and a successful life is one in which you acquire material and financial wealth. But the research on happiness is firmly established, and it suggests that once your basic needs are met, accumulating more stuff, making more money, actually does very little to improve your well-being. But many people have learned to evaluate their own well-being and accomplishment not by looking inwardly at their integrity and the contributions they make to the community, but they get their sense of self-worth from what they have and what they can buy. These people are driven by materialistic aspirations and goals. And here's what we know from the research. People who are highly materialistic are less happy, have more health problems, and have larger ecological footprints than others. Social scientists are now actually looking at ways to make people less materialistic. They're exploring ways to shift people's values so they're less focused on external things such as status and acquiring stuff, but more inwardly focused on connecting to other people, connecting with nature. They've found that actually by getting people to reflect and write about the importance of certain intrinsic values such as connecting to other people, this actually decreases the materialistic values. Practicing mindfulness and gratitude are other ways that are being explored to get people off the consumer treadmill. So to end, I'd like to leave you with this. Some people tend to associate sustainable living with a lower standard of living, having to go without certain things. For my research, I actually interviewed people who had made the decision to simplify their lives by working less, consuming less. These people had disrupted their automatic habits, taken time out to reflect on what was really important to them, and they'd questioned consumer culture, they'd questioned the idea of success. These people, let me say, they weren't sad people. They were happy, they felt free, they felt more in control of their lives and their time. You see, the things that make us happiest are connections to others, a sense of belonging to a community and place, and opportunities to learn and grow. None of these things require material wealth. They're usually cheap or free, and they have less impact on the planet. As Art Buchwald once said, the best things in life aren't things. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I knew it. Perth Green